I was thrilled and delighted to be working with Nigel Fair's, the writer. Last year, as part of the So-and-So's Ever Hopeful Wreck, we were casting a play together. And at that time, he was talking to us about a play that he'd written previously called In Conversation with an Acid Bath Murderer, which was a huge success at the Brighton Fringe a few years ago.
Admit it. The one thing you do want to know, the one thing that horrifies and fascinates each and every one of you, is how exactly did he do it? How did he kill them?
After I'd written In Conversation with an Acid Bath Murderer, I discovered that there were some surprising links between him and my family. Not only had my great-grandfather put the shackles on him in Lewes Prison, but my grandfather had hired him a car from Burgess Hill. So both of those went into the play in its second incarnation. And plus, just before I took over the part of Haig myself, that time round, I fell off my bicycle and had a resulting scar. Surprise, surprise, Haig also had a scar on his forehead, which he was rather obsessed about at one point, because his father said that it was the brand of Satan. His father being a member of the Plymouth Brethren, which in itself is interesting. I'm not saying it excuses Haig's propensity for murder, but it's interesting to wonder whether that had a part in creating the serial killer.
Do you believe in God, John?
I believe in a supreme being.
And does he have a white beard, your supreme being?
I don't know. I've never met him. I felt his presence. I believe everything we do is mapped out by him.
There seems to be quite a lot of interest in the Brighton area about real-life people that have lived and breathed there, and in particular murderers. And all of our characters in the Brighton Killers are real people that have lived in the Brighton area at some point in time. So we started discussing, wouldn't it be fascinating to write another play which is about more than just one killer? Wouldn't it be lovely to create something that was about several of them? And that's where the idea sprung up.
I gathered all that remained of the dead man. His watch and chain, his handkerchief, and his purse.
Percy Lefroy Mapleton was a failed actor and playwright who had delusions of grandeur and was in actual fact horribly in debt and living in penury. And so on the train to Brighton one day, he had built up the courage to murder someone for their money. And he found a commuter called Gold, who looked rather wealthy. And so Percy Lefroy Mapleton sat down in the carriage with him and built up the courage, and when they entered a tunnel, he pulled the revolver out and shot Gold 3 times, but somehow Gold didn't die. And they then got into a titanic struggle, which ultimately resulted in Gold being thrown from the train. And he claimed himself afterwards, when he was incarcerated, of being possessed by a demon. That this was not his act. He was the man who got on the train, and he was the man who got off the train, but he was not the man on the train. He was possessed with a violent force within him.
I guess that's what I'm trying to do as a writer with both of the plays, to explore what led to these people becoming murderers, what led them to that moment, whether it was a crime of passion or whether it was something that was more planned.
The door is locked and you're shut in the dark, and you scream and you shout, but there are no more words. No more words. Well, Costiano is a fascinating creature. There was a long history of mental illness, but it had actually never been diagnosed until it came to light that she had taken to poisoning people in the Brighton area under the guise of using a local sweet shop. She would employ small children to buy and fetch the sweets, changing them so that by the time they were sent on to the people that she wanted to murder, they were full of strychnine. She was completely mad, complete fantasist, but the reality of her truth was that she was completely besotted by a doctor, and the idea that his wife just had to go was where she started to create this idea of murder, really. But she's absolutely fascinating to play, and I love her.
He might not seem like the most handsome man, I'll admit, but if you saw him, you were drawn to him somehow.
Well, the venue is the old police cells underneath the town hall. Rather excitingly, when we first see Percy Lefroy Mapleton, he is actually in situ, standing over the urinal down which he tried to flush one of the murder weapons and the purse he had taken off his victim. So it is as immediate a sense of history as you can possibly get from a venue, because this specific crime was answered for in this specific room.
Oh, I think the fact that this piece is site-specific will be amazing for the audience, because they are really led through the cells on a fascinating journey where they encounter all these different murderers in the different areas that we play in. Not only that, they're actually brought into the stories as well, so if they happen to be the lucky ones, they'll find themselves very definitely part of the action.
First, there appeared to be dew dripping from the branches. The sharp scent of a heavy rainfall that had just passed. As I stepped closer, I saw that it wasn't water, it was blood. Deep red blood.